And the conclusion here is maybe a null hypothesis. It's pretty easy to reject that all Jong-un wants is to inflate his own ego and tell his people that he is doing all he can. There's another Beatles song. I'm doing the best that I can. I used to be angry young man, be hiding me head in the sand. You gave me the word and I finally heard. Now I'm doing the best that I can. I've got to admit, it's getting better. A little better all the time. Can't get much worse. I admit it's getting better, a little better all the time. And then the clocks sound. Protect them from the vicious forces outside. It's a cruel world. It's hard to get by on just a smile, girl. Vicious. Viscous. Genetic warfare doesn't exactly make ICBMs obsolete, but it makes a new method of mutually assured destruction more certain, subtle, and I guess difficult to escape or something. It can also be tailored and targeted only versus accept. And then we finally came up with the remedy designed for that, thanks to whose AMD chip with a work bay, like a terraforming caterpillar sort of thing that could put pilings down for the above ground causeway for your utilities, your wall, and your dwellings and stuff. Upside down suspension, foundation. And if you designed a, what do they call it, a vaccine that had a holding bay like that in it, and then you can tag stuff genetically, and in the holding bay you can put in whatever is being targeted. You put that in the holding bay, then you put the vaccine in the person, and the vaccine absorbs all the stuff trying to target that particular genetic spot, whether it's Asian eyes or, Scandinavian hair color or I don't know, the shape of whose hands or toenails or something. Trying to find, what do they call it, targeted, as opposed to the other method, everyone. Just so then you'd have to put your entire genetic tags in there to absorb that one because it's trying to hit anything and everything. Or maybe you don't have to put one in to pull it out. I'm not a biologist, but the idea that the virus would be like a 6-gun, and you could put different tags in the chambers and then protect yourself somewhat. Maybe there's another way that totally, but that's the kind of thinking. So foreground checks is where we got to in terms of attention duty. 2 weeks a year, like jury duty, you're subpoenaed to show up in court, but instead of sitting on a jury, you go to your state technology militia armory with your camera, your phone, your gun, or use theirs, and you work with a group of people in various kinds of configurations to answer questions about your country from anyone in the world so that Charlie Hebdo kinds of incidents get defused when who really objects to a cartoon that they've seen about their prophet, and your attention duty group gets that Periscope TV question, or it shows up on AOL. You work your best to try to answer it. Word gets around. Who comes up with a funnier cartoon that does not insult the prophet and shows both Denmark and Saudi Arabia have virtues and can both do better. New Yorker magazine style. So then everybody breathes a sigh of relief. And you're more ready the next time who tries to push your buttons. And then other kinds of questions might take the filing of a lawsuit or the passing of a law, because who really does identify an inconsistency in your country that everyone, like these political party deals, how come you say it's free speech and no law shall be made abridging the right of free speech and assembly to peaceably petition the government for redress of wrong? And yet your two major organizations to do that, in half the states they're invaded by the government and told what to do. In fact, racism is perpetrated by the states saying, you will deny membership to people who are members of a similar group as yours. How can you? And so then, we haven't thought, we've been so busy with, I want my MTV and getting our algebra assignment finished. Maybe we haven't really thought about it. So we look into it, and we find half the states or a third of the states have open primaries where you can switch parties and vote in both of them. So it doesn't perpetrate racism or segregation. But the other half do. They say, you become a state agent when you get involved with elections, and you lose your free speech rights, which seems kind of tenuous to me, but I only have the surface explanation. But slavery was justified under the U.S. Constitution for a long time also. So that kind of disenchants a lot of people with the law. And there's even now, Attorney General Holder said, well, don't enforce that law. Instead of saying, well, hey, get that one into court right away and get it overturned so it's the right law. There's definitely some problems. And by admitting that and engaging in attention duty and getting to know people firsthand, and by having access to one another, it's more like an H-bomb of justice. It'll have such an effect than the literally H-bomb of retribution. So are we sampling the Twitter accounts of people like North Korea that want to have a voice? Are we going to them enough without them having to make a escalation of the statement, so that people realize by their press release alone they can achieve a lot? That's kind of what I've been working on, to get jury duty extrapolated to attention duty. So there's sufficient audience paid and under government supervision with applications or software to help assist the answering, both domestically and internationally. So think like a chieftain. Try to move they to become you, and you to become we, and we to become the I, and I, cafe, where when you're thinking about yourself, you're also remembering that the other person's thinking about themselves as themselves, not necessarily as the second person that you're talking to. Kind of like the who substitution that who uses. Instead of saying I, who says who. And that way it makes the first person think about the other people instead of just coming to rest and sitting down on the first person. So that's 33 minutes and 29 seconds of exegesis for the UN Security Council regarding the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and the Republic of Korea, South Korea, wishing them the best of repentance and forgiveness, and seeking an acceptance of forgiveness, the forgiven and the forgivers, in the matter of the corruption trial and removal of the leader, kind of anticipating the conundrum that Robert Mueller is facing here with a grand jury hearing about our own president, Donald J. Trump. While our vice president, Governor Pence, and your left-hand friend, the man of color from this morning, working hard every day to try to test the assumptions of the establishment of divide and conquer that has woven us to so, it's like a formula, so that like the domestic news stories are never mixed with the international news stories. The criticism we have of ourselves never finds its way into the causation or relation of what the international story covers, or the method of agenda for the Article 1, the Congress, is never questioned as to a fiduciary duty to accomplish that, and being liable for failing to accomplish that. It's always been presented as we're the sovereign, we can't make a budget, and nobody can do anything about it. However, the fiduciary duty is to produce the budget, and the sovereign is more than just Article 1. The sovereign is Article 1, 2, 3, and the fourth estate, the press. It's the Congress, the chief executive, and the courts. And they all work together. And then there's the democracy beneath that, so that when Article 1 fails to make a budget, Article 2 is supposed to be able to go to Article 3 and ask Article 3 to order Article 2 to make the budget. It's called a writ of mandamus. And we originally had that with our Constitution, but like within one generation, 25 years or less, it was removed or changed or altered. So now Article 3 can only tell other courts to do what they're supposed to do in matters of equity, when there's no penalty set for the failure to do something, but there is a prescribed duty to do the thing. Then the writ of mandamus comes in and says, hey, you're not doing your duty,